Hello and welcome to Star Diary, the podcast from the makers of BBC Sky at Night magazine. You can subscribe to the digital edition of the magazine by visiting iTunes, Google Play or Apple News, or to the print edition by visiting skyatnightmagazine.com.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to Star Diary, a weekly guide to the best things to see in the Northern Hemisphere's night sky. As we are based here in the UK, all times are in BST. In this episode, we'll be covering the coming week from the 9th to the 15th of September. I'm Ezzy Pearson, Sky at Night magazine's features editor, and before we get going today, I just wanted to say, some of you might have noticed we've got a shiny new logo on our podcast today, and also we've changed the name of our channel from Radio Astronomy to Star Diary. We've been Radio Astronomy since we first started the podcast many years ago, and we thought it was time to bring the name in line with the podcast as you can hear it today. We've been through a lot of changes over the years. We've changed formats. We went from being a monthly show to a weekly show, and we've also changed presenters quite a few times as well. Speaking of which, I am happy to welcome back today one of our astronomy experts, Katrin Rayner. Hello, Katrin.
Hi, Ezzy. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up for us in this week's night sky, so please do tell.
Fantastic. Well, over the next 4 episodes, I will roughly be covering 3 weeks in September, and it's turning out to be a super September.
Ooh.
And I just love this month as well. You can feel autumn creeping in, the air smells different, and you can really feel the chill of a new season in the mornings.
It is always nice. September's always the month that we celebrate the return of dark skies as the longer nights set in, which I know not everybody enjoys, but for us astronomers, it's definitely the longer nights and more time to get out there and actually watch the night sky is always appreciated.
Absolutely, especially I think when you have a day job as well. In the winter you can just get out at like 5 o'clock in the evening then to look up. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. When I was putting the Star Diary together, the line from the REM song Night Swimming came to mind, which says, "September's coming soon, I'm pining for the moon." And this September is a great moon month. And Eddie, I just went on a massive REM binge after that. So,
It's been a while since I've heard that song. I might have to listen to it after the show.
It's a lovely song, isn't it? So if any REM lines sneak into my notes, then I apologise. But it was great revisiting all those songs. Yeah, we've got a great week ahead. We have tiny little Mercury. That's going to be a planet to look out for this week. But moon-wise, it's waxing all week, and there are some fab clear obscure effects to see as well. So on the 10th of September, after the sun sets at around 7:40 p.m, the 46% waxing moon is located near Antares, an irregular variable star which is often referred to as the heart of the Scorpion in the constellation of Scorpius. So it's going to be low in the south-southwest, so you're going to need a clear, unobstructed horizon to see them together. And I feel like I talk about the moon and Antares together quite a lot, so it's been a nice sight to see over the past few months. And we also have the fantastic clear obscure effect called the face in Albert Agnius on the 10th as well. So if you look to the crater of Albert Agnius at 8:40 p.m, you'll be able to see the profile view of a face. And I'm sure many of you know, if you love your clear obscure effects, it's caused by the shadow of the eastern rim of the crater. And Crater Klein overlies Albert Agnius's southwestern rim, and there is a lovely central peak to take a look at as well. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Ezzy, do you remember I said that also looks like POB? Our children's.
It definitely, yes, I can see that. The crater itself.
Yeah, we should just rename it POB crater.
Yeah. The face is very much caused by the shadows of the rim wall being cast down, and it creates the profile of a face. But POB is just there looking out at you from the crater. One big crater for the face, 2 little ones for the eyes, and then I think that's a sort of like ridge for the nose in the middle.
Yeah, that's it. I just can't unsee it now. So.
Well, it's because people are just meant to see faces everywhere. It's that.
Well, this is it, especially on the moon. So on the 11th at 7:05 in the morning, we have the first quarter moon, which means that 50% of its surface is illuminated, but we're not going to see it at 7:05 because the moon won't rise until 4 p.m. But it's always nice to know what's happening with the moon, even if we can't see it. And if you fancy trying to spot another clear obscure effect in the early evening, then grab your binoculars or telescope and locate Crater Clavius to see a pair of eyes.
More eyes, more faces. It's just We look at the moon and the moon looks back at us.
Yes.
Which is a bit more ominous than I meant it to be.
It
But
is, yeah. It does sound very ominous.
we have equal regard for each other. It's lovely.
So Clavius is located deep in the Southern Highlands to the south of crater Tycho, or Tycho. It is a prominent crater during first and last quarter of the lunar phase, and the effect of a pair of eyes happens when the sun illuminates the rims of satellite craters Clavius C and D, whilst the crater floor remains in shadow. And you can see I've shared a picture there with you, Ezzy. I think it actually looks kind of creepy.
Yes, the version that we have, it's the rest of the crater is in shadow and you just see these two eyes, two circles peering out at you from the gloom.
It's like they're glowing in a way, isn't it?
So maybe it is the creepy version of the moon is watching you.
Yeah. To spot the creepy eyes, you will want to view the crater around 6:20, which is actually a really nice time to get some observing done without staying up super late. Yeah, so 2 days of face features to look for.
It does feel over the past couple of weeks we've had a lot of, and it rises after midnight, or the moon doesn't set until after midnight. So having something that's in the evening sky, that's probably early enough that I would have to remember to be in stargazing mode as opposed to relaxing in the evening mode.
It's a treat.
Yes, exactly.
Solar system-wise, on the 9th of September, it's a great time to get out and see the ring planet with a telescope or to take photos of it. So the day before, the 8th, it was at opposition. But on the 9th, it's going to be in the south. After 1 a.m, it will be the best time to get out and see that. And it's going to be shining at a magnitude of plus 0.58. And it is in the constellation of Aquarius. And it's going to be easy to spot, it's going to be pretty bright. And if you haven't seen Saturn before, it's a great time to see it. And you don't need a big fancy telescope to view the planet. You can just use your eyes. But obviously, if you want to look at the rings, you're going to need a scope with an aperture of 6 inches. But using a 3-inch aperture scope at 50 times magnification, you should see a ring around the planet.
As we mentioned in previous times, it's not the best time for Saturn's rings. They are actually tilting towards us at the moment. So we're going to what's called the ring crossing, which is when the rings are going to be edge on to us. But it just means it's a bit more challenging. It's a sight of the rings that you don't very often get to see. So I think it's always worth trying to catch a glimpse of them.
Also on the 9th, we have Mars near M35 in the morning. So they both rise together in the east at pretty much around the same time. We have M35 rising at 11:46 p.m. and Mars will rise at 11:53 p.m. So of course you will see the red planet and the open globular cluster M35 very close together. So M35 also goes by the name of the shoe buckle cluster and shines at a magnitude of +5, which makes it a naked eye target in darker areas. But a small pair of binoculars or a small telescope will bring into view hundreds of more stars. And I remember talking about the shoe buckle cluster in the last episodes of Star Diary that I did, and we did talk that the fact that it looks nothing like a shoe buckle. So I'm not entirely sure how it got the name, to be honest, but we'll go with it.
It's usually just somebody happened to see something when they looked through their telescope, and it might be you need to look at it through a very specific kind of telescope with a very specific magnification, and then it looks like a shoe buckle. Whereas if you try to look through it through a pair of binoculars, it'll look slightly different. If you try to look through it through a bigger telescope, it'll look slightly different. And then if you do astrophotography of it, which astrophotography picks up way more photons and much more light than your eyes is ever going to see. So that's why a lot of times when you see something in a book, it looks completely different to what it does through your naked eye. And sometimes that can lead to things being, the names seem to be slightly strange compared to what they actually look like to most people.
I think nebulas are pretty much, the names that they have are very descriptive of what you can see.
Yeah.
I have noticed that. But yeah, in terms of the shoe buckle cluster, I think I will do some research on that and see if I can see one. So your best time to view Mars and M35 will be in the early hours of the morning when they've both risen over the horizon, of course, and they will be visible until sunrise. And bright Jupiter also shines nearby, and we have Uranus positioned closely to M45, the Pleiades star cluster in Taurus. Continuing with the 9th, Mercury will be at its best at the beginning of September, and you can find the tiny planet shining low in the east before dawn. As many of you know, Mercury is a tricky planet to spot because it hugs the sun so tightly. As it's the closest planet to the sun. I've only ever seen it once, I think, very well.
Yeah.
It's hard work trying to spot it, especially in see the sky when it's sunrise or close to sunset. So,
and as we always say when we're talking about the inner planets, do make sure that you know when sunrise is going to happen, and make sure you set an alarm, because you don't want to accidentally catch the sun through your optics. So you need to be really careful that you don't end up hurting your eyes or your equipment. It depends which one you consider more important.
Yeah.
I would say your eyes, so please do protect those.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, be careful. So Mercury is going to be near Regulus, the brightest star in the constellation of Leo, in the pre-dawn sky. Mercury rises at 5 a.m, closely followed by Regulus, which rises at 5:03 a.m. And the sun doesn't rise until 6:39 a.m, so you will have a bit of time to spot the two together before they are lost in the sun's glare. But obviously, even as the sun is rising and it's not over the horizon, the morning sky is just going to get brighter. So, it's going to be a challenge. Hopefully, some of you will get out and see that. On the 10th of September, we have Titan passing closely to Saturn's northern pole at 1:50 a.m. If you won't be around for this event, or for whatever reason you miss it, don't worry, because there'll be another opportunity next week to see Titan pass Saturn's south pole. I'm pretty excited about seeing this, to be honest. On the 2nd of September, Titan passed Saturn's southern pole. We've had a few opportunities to get out there and see Saturn's largest moon, so I'm going to keep my telescope pointed at Saturn, provided the sky is clear.
Yeah, especially if you managed to catch that previous one, it'd be nice to sort of get the pair of it going above and below the planet. It also really brings home just like how much these things aren't all moving in a plane together. There is quite a lot of variation.
Yeah. I haven't managed to spot Titan yet, but, after seeing Jupiter's moons and how much they've kind of progressed in their orbits each night, it's a fantastic thing to see. So Saturn will be on my list. And on the night of the 13th into morning of the 14th, Ganymede, one of Jupiter's 4 Galilean moons, will transit Jupiter. So the light and colour of the 4 large Galilean moons blend in really well with the light and colour of Jupiter. So seeing the moons themselves can be a challenge, especially in front of the gas giant. So the shadows of the moons are easier to see on Jupiter because we just see them as a dark point against planets. So the transit of Ganymede's shadow will begin at 11:38 p.m. on the night of the 13th and end around 2 hours later in the early hours of the 14th at 1:50 a.m. So I feel like there's some good moon action going on around the planets at the moment as well.
Yes, definitely. Especially with Saturn being edge-ish on in terms of its rings. It gives you a better chance to be able to see the moons. And Jupiter always has, there's always something going on with Jupiter's moons. So if you get interested in that, there's always going to be something that you can look for there. We just bring you the highlights.
So asteroid and comet-wise, we have asteroid 7 Iris. It's still visible in the sky throughout September and can be found in the constellation of Aquarius. It's the 4th brightest object in the asteroid belt, shining at a magnitude of plus 8.66. So you're going to need binoculars or a telescope to see this star-like object. And as we've mentioned previously in many episodes of Star Diary, asteroids are really tricky to pinpoint. So you're going to have to know what you're looking for, because they do just look like stars, don't they?
They're just a dot. And they're not even a particularly bright dot. There is a reason why it took a long time for them to get found.
If you fancy a challenge, or if you know what you're doing and you have spotted asteroids before, then go and check out Iris. So midnight on the 9th of September, Iris is going to be 25 degrees above the horizon. And just below Iris, near the constellation of Capricornus, we have another main belt asteroid called 16 Psyche, which is much dimmer than Iris. It's around magnitude plus 10, and it's going to be approximately 18 degrees above the horizon at midnight. So it's going to be, a challenge to see Psyche as well. So
we will be getting a closer up view of Psyche thanks to NASA's Psyche mission, which is, I believe, currently on its way towards the very metal-rich asteroid. And so in the coming years, it's going to arrive there and survey it, get everything to know about this one asteroid. So I think it would be quite nice to get it through your telescope and see what it looks like. And then as these pictures come in, you can start laying on your picture of what you saw in the night sky with what NASA's bringing back home.
Yes, unfortunately, we won't see the spacecraft
No,
anywhere near it. But
that's a bit beyond most people's optics, or anybody's, in fact.
Absolutely. And on the 10th, we have comet 13P Old Bears entering the constellation of Virgo. It's going to be at magnitude +10, and unfortunately, as the weeks roll on, the comet will become increasingly dimmer. It's going to be low in the west and really tricky to see. But I'm sure some of the diehard comet observers will get out there and try and spot it, but it's beyond my capabilities. So
Olbers, it's not the best comet, but that is one of the good things about comets. You can't necessarily always... Well, sometimes we can predict when a new one's going to come back because we know the orbits of ones we've already seen. But every so often, a new one comes along and surprises us. And sooner or later, we'll get another good comet. But thank you very much for taking us through all of the stargazing highlights for this week, Katrin. If you want to get even more stargazing highlights, do subscribe to the Star Diary podcast, and we'll be back next week with even more highlights. But for now, let's summarise this week. On the 9th of September, look for Saturn in the south after 1 a.m. Mars will be near M35, an open globular cluster as well, and you'll also find Mercury low in the dawn sky. Then on the 10th, the moon will be near Antares. You can look for a clair-obscure effect, known as the face of Albategnius, while Saturn's moon Titan will pass close to the planet's northern pole. Then on the 11th, we have another clair-obscure effect, the eyes of Clavius. On the night of the 13th into the morning of the 14th, Ganymede is going to transit the planet Jupiter. And throughout the week, we have asteroids Iris and Psyche visible throughout the week, with comet 13P Olbers entering the constellation of Virgo as well, though that will be quite low in the west and tricky to see. But that's all from us this week. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you back here next week. Goodbye. If you want to find out even more spectacular sights that will be gracing the night sky this month, be sure to pick up a copy of BBC Sky at Night magazine, where we have a 16-page pull-out sky guide with a full overview of everything worth looking up for throughout the whole month. Whether you like to look at the moon, the planets, or the deep sky, whether you use binoculars, telescopes, or neither, our Sky Guide has got you covered, with detailed star charts to help you track your way across the night sky. From all of us here at BBC Sky at Night magazine, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Star Diary podcast from the makers of BBC Sky at Night magazine, which was edited by Lewis Dobbs. For more of our podcasts, visit our website at skyatnightmagazine.com/podcasts, or head to Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite podcast player.